It's 5 a.m. in New York, 10 in London, and 6 on a Friday here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Moon Gun-young.
I'm Daniel Chen. Thank you for joining us.
We continue our special coverage on the search and rescue efforts to find survivors at the site of the tragic ferry accident here in Korea. We have been hearing uplifting reports all day, only to be disappointed again. So a lot of conflicting reports all day long.
And to clarify certain things, we have our Hwang Sung-hee at the Central Disaster Safety Headquarters in Seoul. So Sung-hee, what's the latest now?
Conflicting reports indeed, guys. The Central Disaster Safety Headquarters has officially apologized for the confusion it has caused through what it called its inaccurate choice of words. Earlier, it had announced that a group of divers had successfully entered the cafeteria of the capsized vessel, fueling hopes for the search for survivors. It had said that the rescue team installed 3 guidelines that can reach the cafeteria and that divers would begin full-scale rescue operations beginning at 3 p.m. Korea time today, which was about 3 hours ago. With the Coast Guard hesitating to use the word success on describing their entry, that report was proven false hours later by the Coast Guard. Meanwhile, 2 divers from the South Korean Navy also entered a compartment on the 2nd floor of the vessel about 3 hours ago, but withdrew just 14 minutes after getting inside. The 2nd floor is where cargo is stored, and the Coast Guard said that the route was blocked by the cargo. Guys?
Right, Sung-hee, it's been more than 2 days, 8 hours now, since the Seoul ferry capsized, and additional bodies are being recovered at the site, but no news of any more survivors.
There have just been 3 recoveries of bodies today. The bodies of 2 male students were recovered about 500 meters away from the capsized vessel earlier this afternoon, and this comes after a body of a middle-aged man was recovered in the morning, putting the total confirmed death toll at 28. 12 bodies have been confirmed as being high school students, 2 teachers, 3 crew members, and a passenger. 10 bodies have yet to be identified, but 7 are believed to be high school students. 268 people still remain missing, and unfortunately, the number of survivors remains unchanged. Guys?
We will look forward to some changes in the numbers soon. Thank you for that update, Sung-hee. That was our Hwang Sung reporting from the Central Disaster Safety Headquarters in Seoul.
Let's now go live to Pingmok Harbor on Jindo Island, just 20 kilometers from the site of the search and rescue mission, where our Kwon So-ah is standing by.
So it looks like the weather conditions seem to have gotten much better. Is it helping the search and rescue process in any way?
Yes, the weather has improved compared to a couple of hours ago. It has gotten much clearer and the visibility is much better than before. Now, it has actually begun to drizzle a little bit around 5 minutes ago, but let's hope that the rain is not going to get any stronger. As for now, we don't have a forecast of strong precipitation, so that is good news. And the current temperature is currently at around 12 degrees Celsius, which is not that different from the underwater level, which is around a degree lower. So now is the time which the rescuers must use effectively before it gets dark.
Yes, every hour, every minute is crucial now in finding survivors. How is the atmosphere among the family members there?
Kanyang, it's sad to say that as the hours pass by, the hope seems to be fading as more bodies have been recovered. The helicopters have moved the bodies here to the harbor where a temporary morgue has been set up. Now, the families that are watching the whole proceedings of the rescue efforts are crying at times and also praying for their loved ones to come back safe to them. And at times they also are shouting in anger and frustrations towards the government about the slow process of the rescue operations and also towards the media that is covering this event.
Well, so is there any talk about what may happen after the search for survivors, and what's the next step going to be for the rescue operations?
Well, discussions will continue on how and when the ferry will be eventually pulled up. Now, 4 cranes have arrived today, and as well as a floating dock, which will be also included in the process. And experts say the process could, however, take months. Now, families are worried that once the cranes are used and the ferry shifts, this could kill any possible survivors, which means they are still holding on to the last piece of hope. Back to you guys in the studio.
Right, and we will keep our fingers crossed as well, and our prayers are with them. Thank you so much for that. That was our Kwon So-ah reporting live on the situation at the Pengmok Harbor on Chindo Island. Meanwhile, at an indoor auditorium on Chindo Island, the families of the missing are trying their best not to lose hope, but as the hours turn into days, they wait for any news about their loved ones.
We have our Yurian standing by at the gymnasium. Lian, how are things looking over there?
Hi, Daniel Ganyang. We've actually received some shocking news just about 30 minutes ago. The vice principal of Tanwan High School is believed to have committed suicide. He was found hanged from a tree on a hill behind the Chindo Auditorium at around 10 minutes past 4 Korea time, according to the local police here. But we can't be sure yet if it was suicide. Investigations are ongoing. The vice principal was on board when the ferry was sinking, and he was one of the few that was rescued. Now, ever since the rescue, the police say he has been putting the blame on himself.
Quite shockingly, and it highlights the fact that the survivors need special attention as well in terms of being consoled and comforted. Now, how are the people there reacting to that news, and how have the families of the victims been doing amid all these conflicting reports today about the rescue operation?
Well, the teachers of the Tanwan High School that were here at the gym broke into tears when they heard about the news of the vice principal. As for the families here, frustrations are growing as they're only left to hear news on the rising death toll. There are a number of Coast Guard officials here who are trying their best to answer the questions these families of victims have, but they are growing more emotional as more time passes, and they are demanding transparency into the rescue operations. Earlier this morning, the head of the victims' families here issued a plea statement which was broadcast nationwide, asking people across the country to help them rescue their children. Families are feeling they need all the help they can get after finding out that number of rescue personnel announced by the government, and the actual number they got is quite different. Many here are simply looking just tired and exhausted from hours of shouting and arguments with the Coast Guard officials here. The atmosphere here is just really grim, guys.
Where the emotional responses are understandable, our hopes and prayers are with them. Thank you for your report, Lian. That was our Yudian reporting from Chindo Indoor Auditorium, where many of the family members of the now 268 missing are gathered, waiting for news of their loved ones.
Now, meanwhile, there is an investigation going on the captain and the crew, and questions on whether they neglected their duty. And with further details, we are joined live by our Park Ji-won from the Arirang News Center.
So, Ji-won, an investigation on what caused the ferry to capsize continues by the joint team of prosecutors and police, we understand. What do we know now so far?
The joint investigation team said they were still looking into the case. They summoned the captain again today for the 3rd time and plan to file an arrest warrant later today on charges of manslaughter. And another crew member of the ship was also summoned this Friday and is currently being questioned. Earlier in the day, prosecutors raided the offices of the ferry operator Cheonghae Marine to find more evidence. They are also looking into whether excessive renovations of the ship may have been a factor. And as you can see here, the ship was renovated in 2012, and the ship's weight increased by nearly 1,000 tons. The number of passengers of the ship, passengers that the ship can carry, also increased by more than 100. And experts say this might have played a factor in the ship's listing so easily when taking a sharp turn. The investigation team also raided a shipyard in Mokpo that renovated the ferry. And every surviving member of the ferry's crew and the top management personnel of the ferry's operator have been banned from leaving the country.
Right. Further investigation needs to focus on that area. Now, the team in charge of investigating this disaster held a press briefing, I understand, in the southern city of Mokpo earlier today. What did we learn from that?
Yes, the joint investigation team, composed of the nation's prosecutors and police, announced their interim report this morning, and it's been confirmed that the ferry's 26-year-old third mate, not the captain, was steering the 6,800-ton ferry when the vessel encountered trouble. She graduated from Mukpo National Maritime University 3 years ago and started working for this company in December, just about 4 or 5 months ago. Korean regulations mandate that a vessel more than 3,000 tons should be navigated by a first or second mate. And considering that the Seoul ferry weighs more than twice that, it's clear violation of regulations. And fingers are being pointed toward the captain, who is believed to have been away from the steering room at the time of the incident. However, regarding the exact location of the captain at the time of the crisis, testimonies have so far differed.
And we also believe there were reports of text messages initially thought to be from survivors on the capsized ship, but later it was found to be pranks.
Yes, those messages gave false hope to the whole nation yesterday, especially the weary families of the missing. And some of the messages turned out to be sent by senseless teenagers who did not understand the seriousness of the matter. Investigators said they would draw punitive measures against those that are spreading groundless rumors through social networking sites about the accident.
Right, it's quite unbelievable what these people would do in this distressful time for the entire nation. All right, Jiwon, please do keep us updated on that front. That was our Park Jiwon live from the News Center. Let's try getting a better sense of the situation down in Chindo, including the terrain the rescue teams are dealing with there off Korea's southwestern coast and what might have caused this huge ferry to sink. And
for those details and more, Captain John Noble joins us via Skype. He is the director of UK-based Constellation Marine Services.
Captain John Noble, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with the search and rescue operations here. What's your assessment of the quality and the scale of what we're seeing? I mean, how does it compare with previous operations carried out by other countries?
Well, the initial response, once people realized that the ship was in difficulty, I thought was very good. There were lots of fishermen got out there very quickly. They rescued about 179 people very quickly indeed. And that stage of the operation, I think, is to be commended. People put themselves, what we say, in harm's way. In other words, into danger in order to save lives. Now, that was very commendable. Since the ship capsized and sank, it's changed, the rescue operation has changed emphasis. And it really is a matter of, or was a matter of, getting people like divers into the hull to try and search. And again, that what they've tried to do, I think, is very commendable. And I don't think it would be bettered anywhere else in the world, to be honest.
Well, we've been seeing both sides, or both ends of the spectrum, rather, with extreme heroism, like you say, people who are risking it all, and then people who just looking after themselves and being completely selfish. Now, 60 hours, we're close to 60 hours now. They're trying to pump some air into there. Divers are trying to enter the submerged ferry. But given the structure of the ferry at the moment, do you feel that the chances of survival, can you tell us about that? It's been more than 2 days, so how likely and what are the possibility, what are the percentage like at the moment for the survivors in there?
Well, I hesitate to say, but I don't hold out very much, if any, hope for anybody left on board. One main reason for that is the temperature. The sea temperature itself is about 12 degrees Celsius. Anyone immersed at that temperature for that length of time would have got hypothermia and would not survive. And I hate having to say it, but I really do not hold out very much hope for finding anybody alive. If there is, it will only be described in my phraseology as a miracle.
Well, we are all hoping for that very miracle here in Korea. Now, Captain John Noble, the negligence of duty on the captain's part in this ferry capsized case, we have been getting reports that it wasn't in fact the captain steering the vessel, but a third mate. Now, you've been operating large vessels as a captain for the last 30 years. As a mariner, what are your thoughts on the captain and the crew's behavior following the accident?
Well, there are two sides to that. I did sail as third mate on a ferry running from UK to the Channel Islands, similar sort of run to this one. Now, the third mate, or the third officer who was on the bridge, he would be there as part of his everyday watch-keeping duties. Now, he would have then been asked to call the captain to the bridge in the event of severe weather or reduced visibility. So just that off the bridge in itself is not unusual, because that would have been part of the routine. Where I think things go wrong is, was the ship on course? If not, why not? And then once this dreadful accident occurred, why did the captain leave the ship so early on? That's speaking as a mariner, that is conduct which is, in my view, highly questionable.
Well, right now we have a lot of speculations coming in on what exactly caused the accident. One is that it veered off course and steered a little bit abruptly. In your opinion, as someone who's been behind control of such large ships, what would be one of the reasons for such an abrupt turn which would jeopardize the ship and the people on board?
Well, a ship should be able to make an abrupt turn at any time, and the reason I say that is because to avoid collisions with other ships. Now, if you have a lot of fishing boats in the area or other coastal traffic, and there is a risk of having a collision, very often, and I've done it myself, you have to put the wheel, as we say, hard over and take a harder port or a harder starboard dramatic turn. But that should not capsize the ship.
Right. So there are still various theories and speculations on what exactly caused that vessel or ferry to capsize. All right, Captain John Noble, Director of UK-based Constellation Marine Services, thank you so much for speaking with us this evening.
Thank you.
The world is reaching out to Korea during this very difficult time.
And U.S. President Barack Obama offered his deep condolences to the victims of the ferry disaster, and he pledged Washington's full support for the ongoing search and rescue operations during a news conference at the White House Thursday.
Before I begin, I just want to express, on behalf of the American people, our deepest condolences to the Republic of Korea and the families of all those who've seen their loved ones lost when a ferry sank within the last couple of days. As one of our closest allies, our commitment to South Korea is unwavering in good times and in bad.
Obama added that he will convey this message in person when he visits Korea for a previously planned trip next week. Now, earlier, the leaders of China, Japan, and Singapore echoed his sentiments, along with Pope Francis, who delivered a message saying he will pray for the victims, their families, and everyone involved in the rescue operations.
Now, 179 passengers were rescued on the day of the accident. They may have survived, but many of them have to be treated physically and also psychologically.
Of course, let's go live to our Connie Kim, who joins us from the Korea University Ansan Hospital. This is where the largest number of patients are being treated. Connie, before we talk about the survivors, I know more bodies have been brought to the hospital. It must have been an emotional scene. What's the atmosphere there like?
Right, guys, I'm standing live in front of the funeral hall of Korea University Ansan Hospital. And now, as you can see behind me, more and more people, including students and adults, are coming here to say their last goodbyes to their long-lost loved ones. Now, there weren't any additional deceased passengers arriving here in the afternoon since 2 arrived earlier in the morning. The funeral hall has calmed down somewhat, but still woes are filled and sobs are continuously heard from inside. A total of 5 of the dead are here in the hospital, and with tear-stained friends and families paying their respect, Tanwon High School is considering to set up an incense altar within the school or the Ansan Olympic Stadium.
Now, Connie, a number of the students who managed to escape the sinking ferry with their lives are also receiving treatment at the hospital. How are they doing?
Well, the press briefing was held earlier in the afternoon, and according to the director of the hospital, there are currently 76 patients receiving medical care. 72 high school students being from Tanwon High School, along with 1 teacher and 3 other passengers. He said a stress test was conducted on the students and said most of the teenagers are suffering from moderate levels of stress, but declined to mention specific numbers. He also said depending on their mental conditions, they have provided counseling sessions to both parents and students. Officials say there are teenagers with harsh critical conditions who cannot speak at the moment from shock. They said they'll continue to provide help to students and parents and will also cooperate with the education and welfare ministries.
All right, definitely those people need care as well. Thank you, Connie. That was Arirang News' Connie Kim reporting live from Korea University Ansan Hospital, where many of the injured are being treated.
Now, it's almost inevitable that dramatic moments are caught on film in this day and age of smartphones. Newly released footage shows when the ship first encountered trouble.
We have another amateur video from inside the ferry, and it reveals the harrowing moments when water started gushing in. Our Connie Lee has more.
You can see the ferry from afar in the midst of the fog. The ship is listed about 45 degrees. This amateur video, captured about 30 minutes after the ship tipped over, shows the arrival of the first helicopters to rescue passengers on the deck of the boat. Merchant ships and fishing boats also approach the scene. The ferry has now listed even more, and you can see heavy shipping containers shifting on the deck of the boat. Fishing boats speed up closer to the scene in frantic attempts to rescue anyone on board. But the ferry is quickly submerged, with jets of water shooting out as the ship is now nearly completely engulfed. This just in about 2 hours' time. In another video, taken on cell phone by one of the passengers, shows the harrowing moments the ship started sinking. A passenger yells out that water is rushing in, water is rushing in. Other passenger videos have also been circulating on the internet in the past 2 days, including one that shows passengers clinging onto walls and their lives as the ship was slanted nearly 90 degrees. In the meantime, an announcement rings out on the loudspeakers. It tells passengers not to move and to stay put. And that's exactly what students here in this video are doing. The footage, taken by a surviving passenger, shows students staying where they are, some laying down with their life vest on inside the ship that is clearly starting to capsize. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Now, even as we speak, the search for survivors in waters off Korea's southwestern coast continues.
Joining us now is Michelle Park for a look at the conditions down near Chindo. Michelle, how are the conditions in the area right now?
Well, the fog has mostly cleared up in Chindo now with visibility up to 10 kilometers, and the velocity of the tidal currents is estimated between 1.8 and 10 kilometers per hour. Now, 2 periods of slow tides has already passed, leaving only one more at 10:25 p.m. local time, which will only last about an hour. Now, the water temperature currently is at 11.3 degrees, similar to yesterday, with winds blowing in at 3.8 meters per second, and the height of the wave is at 1 to 2 meters. Now, tomorrow we can expect partly cloudy skies and rescue operations continue. However, strong winds are forecast going into the afternoon. Now, we'll continue to monitor the situation down near Chindo and just hope for the best. Now, for the rest of the nation, we can expect some cloudy day tomorrow with warm temperatures, and the fine dust level will increase in the morning, which will likely to clear up throughout the day. Well, that's all I have at this moment. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
Thank you, Michelle, for that. And that's all from us at this hour. Our special coverage on the nation's search and rescue efforts for survivors in Korea's ferry disaster continues right here on Arirang.
So join us again at the top of the hour. Thank you for watching.